Welcome to Porch Play Chats, sponsored by the American Association for Promoting the Child's Right to Play, or shortened to IPA USA. IPA USA is the USA affiliate of the International Play Association. As part of our efforts to promote play, we've introduced Porch Play Chats, which are conversations with people who are just as passionate about play as we are. To stay up to date on the Porch Play Chats, you can go to ipausa.org. Up in that top right-hand corner is a link to our Facebook page, so you can be a friend. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel, and you can do whatever you need to do to be on Instagram, because I don't know, I'm old. But it's up there, and we post. I do not, but other people post things on the Instagram page. And every Monday, magically, a new Porch Play Chat appears in your feed. So I'm Deb Lawrence, and I'm the president of IPA USA. And joining me on the porch today is it Gemma?
It is Gemma, yes.
Gemma, that's a beautiful name. I love it. Gemma Medina. And Gemma's been in early childhood field since she was a child herself and is a strong advocate for play. With over 20 years of experience in the trenches as a toddler teacher, preschool teacher, and program director, oh my goodness, we have so much in common. She is now an ECE instructor at the University of Hawaii, Maui College. And in her spare time, she visits local preschools and events, singing and playing tambourine as part of Uncle Wayne and the Howling Dog Band. That sounds amazing.
It's a lot of fun.
I bet I hope you go and do this like at play days in the community or something, because that would be hysterical fun. So Gemma's topic today is pre-service teachers and overcoming their play deprivation, which is a huge passion of mine. And so when we think about play deprivation and how it's impacting the future teachers, talk about that, Gemma, and then tell me what you're doing, because I can't wait to learn.
Yeah, well, I think right now, a lot of people are talking about play deprivation in regards to, what's happened with the pandemic. So the children now are going through this sort of similar play deprivation experience. And for me, when I think about play deprivation, I think about, growing up, for me, the images that I saw on TV were, children in institutions, Romanian orphans, not being able to play. And what I'm talking about is not that extreme, right? I'm talking about the people that I see in my classroom right now, 18 to 25-year-olds, and what their experience was like as a child. And at that time, we were going through, No Child Left Behind, right? It was just going through when they were children. There's the helicopter parenting that kind of started becoming more common. And so really the students that we see did not have a chance to play. And whether it was that they were, the poor kids that get lots of academic stuff, sort of, they need to catch up. And so we think
catch them up.
Right, they got to catch up. So we got to give them all this academic, skill and drill work. Or if they were the more rich kids that every second of their lives was scheduled for them with violin and, soccer and there wasn't room for child-led play in the way that perhaps you and I had it. And I think I'm a child of I was born in 1978, child of the 80s. And so for me, it was like we would go outside for hours at a time, running around with neighborhood kids of all different ages. And, it's hard to imagine not having that experience, but our students really didn't have that, right?
Not.
And I've started noticing this. So I've been teaching at the college now for about, I've been a full-time faculty for 2 years. Before that, I was an adjunct, or what we call a lecturer, for about 5 years. And then prior to that, I did lots of workshops and things at our local conferences on play. And so one of the questions that's often asked, and one of the things that I remember being asked as a student, is where did you play and who did you play with and who was there? And so I've started to notice this trend over the last few years that when I get the answers to those questions, they're changing. And the answers to those questions are no longer I was outside. It was I was inside playing in my room by myself. Or I was playing on video games. I didn't want video games, and they get excited about the video games. Or it was, adults in the picture. And we really didn't have a lot of adults in the picture when we were coming up. So I think that is really where this where the differences lie, right? And so the students that we have now didn't have those experiences, and yet here we are telling them, and now you have to teach through play, but
Mhm.
they don't have those experiences to draw from.
Right.
So I think that's what's just been kind of like ruminating in my mind a lot lately. And one of the things that one of the courses that I teach is developmentally appropriate practices, which of course is a lot of play. And when I introduced the play, and so the play sort of theme didn't happen until a few weeks into the course.
Mhm.
And I had a professor who was actually my teacher, and she would come in and do a play workshop.
Mhm.
And what that looked like was the students would be given a choice of loose parts, and they'd be encouraged to play for 20 minutes on their own. And then they come together and they can join with another person or with a group of people and play for another 20 minutes. And what
Mhm.
I realized is after that play session, the students were far more connected. They had much better conversations when they were doing small group work. So the quality of their interactions became much more rich after
Mhm.
they'd had this engaging play experience.
Yes,
So
that's
that's what
Walter Drew's, right? That's the Walter Drew's book, the whole
right.
book that he and Marcia wrote on the play experience. I just, as an aside, I went to Walter Drew's session at the NAYC conference. And have you ever gone through their experience there, that 3-hour session
No,
at
but
it?
I think that could be where she got this.
I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I probably did that. I was a director then. I was a director of a preschool, always believed in play. And I went to that session and I recognized, even though I had played for every day for hours, I felt so, when I went to that session, they have all these materials in the middle of the floor and you're sitting in a chair in a circle around looking at all these materials, and they sort of introduce the session to you, and then they say something has been calling you to play with it. And so, walk, and this is a silent experience, and you're going to um, explore with your materials. I remember sitting down in that room of 50 people at something that had been calling me, and I was so self-conscious.
Right.
I was like, well, I wonder how, and I was worried. I wonder how long we're going to be able to do this. And is it even worth, diving in to see what these materials are? And I wonder, will anybody be watching me? So I would look, I mean, really, and I'm not a paranoid person. I would look around to see what other people were doing. They were looking around to see what other people were doing. And Walter and the crew had their backs to us and were not watching. They weren't talking. It was absolutely silent. Beautiful music was playing in the background.
Mhm.
No one
Yeah.
was talking to each other. And I bet it took me 10 minutes to begin to say, okay, well, it sounds like I'm going to have time. It took me 10 minutes to get engaged with the materials. And then I was lost. I was in those materials having an absolutely wonderful time. And it was a while later, they said, here's your 5-minute warning. And I was like, oh, but I'm not done yet. I tried this and it didn't work. So I'm trying something else and it didn't work. Now I want to try something else. So I'm not ready to be done. And then after we were done, they said, how long do you think you played? And we were like, 20 minutes. That's all we had. We had only, you played for 45 minutes. That's the beauty of this 3-hour session, right? And we were like, there's no way. They said, you played for 45 minutes, and you began to recognize, and even though I knew play was important and I knew what my experiences were, and I knew the value of play, and we had play in my program, children played the majority of the day, it still gave me a different perspective. And then, then you could blend your materials together and play with a partner,
Right. Right.
and it was lovely. Uh, but it was that experience that I tell Walter this all the time, Walter, that experience was life changing in
Mhm.
recognizing the value of play. So
Right.
yes,
And
I'm
I think
glad she comes in and does that.
yeah, and it's the same for our students, right? And for our students, they have, it's it's even worse than sort of the Bev Buzz idea of childhood amnesia, because they don't have childhood amnesia because they didn't have those experiences. So
Exactly.
offering those experiences to our students is really, really powerful. And I think, what I've done is moved that class up to one of the first classes that we do in the beginning of the semester. But yeah, and also the idea that that's what children go through. We can't give them these 20-minute blocks of time because that's just not enough.
Not enough.
So being able to connect that to their own experience of like, oh yeah, when I played for 45 minutes, it didn't feel that long. And it took me 10 minutes to even decide what I was going to do with the materials. And children are
And
just
I'm
like,
an adult.
right.
And I'm an adult with many other skills underneath in my tool belt.
Yes.
And it still took me 10 minutes to get engaged because I was concerned that it was gonna be too short and it wasn't gonna be worth my time. And they were not gonna give me enough time, right? So yeah, I think it is critical. So tell me more about the playful experiences that you're including in the classroom for these future teachers.
So I work with a master teacher that has been doing this for years, and she is very much about giving the students the experience. And so she teaches our curriculum courses. And in the curriculum courses, she spends hours setting up the environment, if they're talking about woodworking or clay, the students have that experience to work with woodworking and clay. So I think just giving the students, making sure that we have those tools in our toolbox, right? That we have the materials that we can provide to students. And over the pandemic, when we were on Zoom, it was a lot more challenging. Yes. But she found ways of, she had a file cabinet on campus. Students had to come, each had a key, and they would pick up their materials. So they still got the materials to sort of have those experiences. In my 115 course, so that's our health, safety, and nutrition class, the students work with a group to develop a curriculum based on whatever the topic is. And so we have a curriculum fair, and that's when the students present their materials that they've created, their activities that they've created. And then we have time to explore that and play together and play in their different centers. And then we debrief about that afterwards. So I think just providing those opportunities for students in every course that we teach, rather than just having it focused on that one play experience in is critical. Yeah.
They really need more than, they need it to be embedded. You're exactly right. And I think before, I'm trying to think when I do it. So I have to just kind of think back. In child development, we go outside pretty early in the course. It depends on the weather, right? So we're in the fall, it's lovely. We can go out like the first 2 weeks of class and really have a great time. But when we talk about the value of play is when we go out. And I think that starts in like week 3. Before then, we're doing all the other stuff that we need to do to understand child development and where we're going, where the course is heading. And when we go out, I have balls and jump rope and Chinese jump ropes and sidewalk chalk and a parachute and tennis balls, and I have a whole bunch of stuff that we take, hula hoops that we take out. And jacks, because they don't know how to play jacks.
They've never heard of, right?
Never heard of jacks or Chinese jump rope, by the way. Anyway, and so we go out and we play, and everybody, it's their choice. They can play wherever they want to play, and for as long as they want, they can do whatever they want. And what's so hysterical to me is, I have 35 kids in the class, and then all of a sudden kids are coming from everywhere in the college to play. And they're like, can we play? Well, of course you can. And so they're like down on the ground playing. And then once that experience is done, which is about an hour and a half, then we go back inside and the next class, I ask them, what did you do socially? What did you do emotionally? What did you do with language? What did you do with math? What did you do with science? What did you do? And we go through all the academic subjects. What did you do fine motor? What did you do gross motor? And we have lists up on the board of all of those, both cognitive, social, language, and physical things that they did just by being outside playing for an hour and a half. And they go, oh my God.
Yeah.
I said, it encompasses every domain of development that we need children to have practice with.
Right.
And it doesn't have to be structured, right? I just said, here's material, go play.
And their role as future teachers is really going to be making those connections to parents, because a lot of times it's the feedback that we get is, well, the parents want the children to do this, this, and this. Well, the parents are pushing back. Well, they're the expert on their child, and you're the expert on child development. And so it is our job as the teacher, or their job as the future teachers, to be able to articulate that connection, which is exactly why giving them those experiences, they internalize that and they're able to speak to it.
Yes, absolutely. So when I was a director for 13 and a half years, we were a play-based program, and parents will say, well, when are they going to learn to read? And when are they going to learn to write? When are they going to learn their ABCs? And when are they going to learn all of these things? And I would look at every parent and I would say, in this program, children acquire and master the dispositions of learning that get them ready to do all of those things. And so as they develop, they gain this authentic and natural interest in the world around them, and they begin to get ready for those skills. But first we have to set this foundation for them. And so those dispositions are what we focus on, and parents would go, that sounds wonderful. And all we did was play, right? But they saw it. They saw children coming home with the songs that we were singing and singing them in the car on the way. And they saw their children begin to get interest in what the letters were that were in their name and writing their name as they got to be 4.5. And they saw children developing math competencies, not because we were teaching 2 + 2 or how you're going to sort all of your colors, not because we were doing that, but because they had an opportunity to do that. And we'd say, wow, look what you did. You sorted all your colors. That's pretty impressive. How many colors did you sort? And, in our normal everyday conversations with children without interfering or interrupting, which I think is the other horrible path. Well, why did you do that?
Right. Bombardment of questions.
I know. Oh, please stop. Please stop. Please stop. So, yeah. So, and I think that if we could help parents recognize that, and unfortunately, in many cases, they didn't have that experience, right?
Well, it's the same generation that we're talking about, right? The same coming up at the same time. Yeah.
And so they've missed that. So you're right. It's not childhood amnesia, as Bev would tell us. It's childhood deprivation using a different vocabulary word.
Yeah.
So as teachers of future teachers, professors of future teachers, we were, and I want to hear who your master teacher is that's at your school. If we were to encourage other college professors who I know, if they've been teachers in classrooms and are play advocates already, how maybe we could create this bank of active learning experiences for all college professors who are teaching in this pre-K, birth to 4th grade or 3rd grade, whatever your state's done, continuum. I think, wouldn't that be helpful? Because I'm not
so helpful.
So helpful. I think maybe IPA USA should maybe have a website where professors can do that. So we can do a bank of learning activities that are active in the classroom to help students master the course competencies, but to do it in a playful, active, interactive way. I think that's a great idea.
Yes.
I'm gonna
write that down.
I'm going to write that down because I think that's where we've gone off track, is that we've not only are we trying to catch college students up from the 2 years they may have lost in their development, but I think we're keeping students maybe from flourishing back in the classroom. I mean, some of them are so focused, Gemma, on just, well, I only want to take online classes because it's convenient, because I have to work and I have to pay my bills and and I always encourage them, it's so much more fun when you come to school, right? I'm
doing this program right now called Teachers in the Trenches, and it's for those teachers who are sort of new to the field and are wanting some more support from, you know, because they're maybe not seeing what they learned in their program reflected in the schools. And one of the feedback that I got is I would not have done this if it had been on Zoom. You know, I need this face-to-face interaction. And if I'd been on, this is what she told me, if I'd been on Zoom, I probably would have turned off my camera and been doing other things.
Exactly.
So it's not the same experience.
It is not the same experience. And so it's really interesting. And, you know, there are students who have enough self-control and self-motivation and initiative and who really, really want to be there to learn. I just remember even in my PhD program, when we got together, and in my master's program, when we got together, the discussions were so rich, and you just deepened your understanding and your knowledge, that sometimes that just cannot be replicated when you're just online. And I know technology is here to stay, and I'm tired of it. And we wouldn't be doing Zoom Porch Play Chats unless we had technology.
That's true.
But we're adults, not young children.
Yeah.
And so I think that's where the other big difference comes in.
I think you bringing up the sort of last 2 years that our students have been through as well. So if you think about those students that are so I would teach in an associate program, so they're coming straight from high school. They've just had 2 years online of high school. And the first class I had this semester, I could not pull out. They were so shy, and so they just didn't know how to connect with each other. And so the second class, I was like, okay, that's it. We need to do it. I need to play. They need to play this class
together to build relationships.
And they built those relationships in that second class, and it made a huge difference for these students that have been online for the last 2 years.
I think that's a really good point. I remember when I came back in the first child development class that I taught face-to-face, it was like silence. And that I'd ask a question, nobody would talk. And that is exactly it. And yet we expect children to be socially ready and adept after being 2 years of isolation. And we expect our students to be. So I think the best thing we can do as college professors, as well as teachers of early childhood classrooms, is to just let them play so that they can not get caught up in those crazy academic skills. That will come. But first they have to get caught up socially and emotionally, so they have the capacity then to work on those other skills later. Gemma, this has been amazing. And so I want us to continue this discussion. I want us to think about this bank of active learning experiences that maybe we can start promoting for educators across who are teaching, no matter what grade level they're teaching, but especially those who are teaching future teachers. To think about this. And we do have Porch Play Chats on, playing in middle grades and playing in, hopefully I'm going to get one on playing in the secondary grades. And of course we have one on playing in the primary classroom. But I do think more of this on playing with future teachers is really important. So don't go anywhere. I'm going to close this out. Stay right there. I'll be right back.
All right. Thank you.
So to learn more about IPA USA, please visit our website at ipausa.org. And until next time, keep on playing.